Captain Thomas Reed's boots made a hollow sound as he walked across the bridge of the Resilient. The ship was old, very old. Patches of rust covered its walls. Wires hung from the ceiling. Half the screens were cracked or dark. This was not what he had hoped for when Earth joined the Galactic Federation. "Sir, the Vreeland delegates are leaving now," said First Officer Anna Wilson. She pointed to the screen that still worked. Thomas watched the small, sleek ship of the aliens pull away. The Vreeland's vessel shone like a polished gem against the blackness of space. Its smooth lines and silent engines showed just how advanced their technology was compared to what they had sold to humans. "They're laughing at us," Anna said. Her face was tight with anger. "They sold us these floating jump piles for 10 times what they're worth." Thomas nodded. He felt the same anger, but he kept it hidden better. "Let them laugh," he said quietly. The Resilient was one of 12 ships the Vreelands had sold to Earth. All of them were in the same poor shape. All of them were at least a century old. They were warships once, but now they were barely fit to fly, let alone fight. Thomas looked out the main window. The other 11 ships floated nearby. Together, they made up Earth's new defensive fleet. The ships looked sad and small against the vastness of space. 3 years ago, humans had finally created faster-than-light travel. They had reached out to the stars, hoping to find friends. What they found instead was the Galactic Federation, a group of alien species who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Earth had asked to join the Federation. The aliens had agreed, but with rules. One rule was that Earth needed its own fleet of ships to protect its borders. The Vreelands, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Federation, had offered to sell some of their old warships to Earth. What they didn't mention was that the ships were nearly falling apart. The price was incredibly high, but Earth had no choice. They needed these ships to join the Federation. "Captain, we're getting a call from Admiral Blake," called out the communications officer. Thomas straightened his uniform. "Put her through." The face of Admiral Eliza Blake appeared on the main screen. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Captain Reed, how's our new fleet?" she asked. "About as good as we expected, Admiral," Thomas replied. "The Vreelands didn't exactly give us their best." Admiral Blake's mouth formed a small smile. "I want you and your senior officers to return to Earth immediately. Bring all technical data from the ships. We have work to do." "Yes, Admiral," Thomas said, wondering what she had planned. 1 week later, Thomas stood in a large underground room carved into the Rocky Mountains. The place was a secret military base that few people knew about. Around him stood 30 of Earth's best engineers, scientists, and military strategists. Admiral Blake walked to the front of the room. The talking stopped. Everyone turned to listen. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "the Vreelands think they've played a clever trick on us. They sold us their garbage and called it a fleet." She paused, looking around the room. "But what they don't know is that we've been developing technologies they've never seen before. Technologies we kept hidden during our negotiations." She pressed a button on her tablet. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a sleek, black device barely the size of a coffee mug. "This," she said, "is the Silent Destroyer, and it's going to change everything." The room was quiet. Everyone stared at the small device. "What does it do?" someone finally asked. "It allows a ship to partially exist in another dimension," Admiral Blake explained. "This makes the ship nearly invisible to normal sensors. It also means that standard weapons pass right through it without causing damage." Thomas leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "You're saying we can make our ships ghost-like?" "Exactly, Captain," the Admiral nodded. "We developed this technology while trying to achieve faster-than-light travel. We took a completely different approach than what the Federation species use. They never discovered this because their evolution took them down a different technological path. But will it work with the ships they sold us?" Anna asked. "They're barely holding together as it is." A man stood up from the back of the room. He was tall and had dark skin. His name tag read Okafor, Chief Engineer. "That's where I come in," he said. "The ships they sold us are indeed in poor shape, but their basic structure is sound. We can rebuild them from the inside out, installing our own technology while keeping the outside looking exactly the same." Admiral Blake smiled. "The Vralans and the rest of the Federation think they've given us useless junk. They expect us to struggle for decades just to catch up with their outdated technology. Instead, we're going to transform these ships into something they've never seen before. But," she raised a finger, "we'll keep the rusty, broken-down appearance." "Why?" Thomas asked. "Because, Captain Reed, the best advantage in any conflict is to be underestimated by your opponent." The room buzzed with excitement. Scientists began discussing modifications. Engineers argued about power requirements. Military officers debated tactics. Thomas turned to Anna. "This changes everything," he said. "If it works," she replied, still skeptical. Admiral Blake overheard them. "It will work, First Officer Wilson. Project Phoenix begins today." She looked at Thomas. "Captain Reed, your Resilient will be the first ship to be upgraded. I want you to oversee the process personally." Thomas nodded. "Yes, Admiral." As the meeting broke up, Thomas looked again at the hologram of the silent destroyer. Such a small device to place so much hope in. He thought about the smug faces of the Vralan delegates as they had handed over the keys to their rusted warships. They had thought they were taking advantage of humanity's desperation. They had no idea what was coming. "Let them laugh," he whispered to himself. For now, the moon Europa glowed blue-white against the massive backdrop of Jupiter. Hidden in its shadow, 12 Earth ships floated in a loose formation. From the outside, they still looked like junk, rusted hulls, mismatched patches, and faded markings. But inside, they were changing. Chief Engineer Marcus Okafor floated in the engine room of the Resilient, his magnetic boots turned off so he could reach the ceiling panels. 6 months of non-stop work had transformed the ship's insides. Where old, inefficient Vralan engines once sat, now Earth's advanced quantum systems hummed quietly. "Hand me the calibrator," Marcus said to his assistant Jack Reeves. Jack passed him the tool. "We're almost done with this section. Just the bridge systems left after this." Marcus nodded as he made delicate adjustments to the silent destroyer device. The small black box was now connected to the ship's main power core. Tiny lights on its surface blinked in a complex pattern. "It doesn't make sense," Marcus said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Despite the cool air, the Vralans have been in space for over 2,000 years. How did they miss something this fundamental?" Jack shrugged. "Different paths, I guess. They focused on energy fields. We focused on matter manipulation. They never needed to develop quantum phase technology because they went straight to plasma shields." "Lucky for us," Marcus replied. The silent destroyer wasn't a weapon in the normal sense. It didn't fire bullets or energy beams. Instead, it allowed the ship to partially exist in another dimension. This made the ship nearly invisible to standard sensors and meant that normal weapons would pass right through it without causing damage. Humans had discovered this technology while trying to achieve faster-than-light travel. They had taken a completely different approach from what had become standard in the Federation. Earth scientists called it quantum phasing. The Federation had no name for it because they had never discovered it. "All personnel, prepare for inspection. Admiral Blake will arrive in 30 minutes, announced the ship's computer. Marcus and Jack looked at each other. "We'd better finish up," Marcus said. Admiral Blake walked through the corridors of the Resilient with Captain Reed beside her. From the outside, the ship still looked like it might fall apart at any moment. Inside was a different story. "Impressive," she said, running her hand along a newly installed control panel. "How many of the original systems did you keep?" "Almost none," Thomas replied. "We kept the shell and basic structure but replaced everything else. We installed our own engines, weapons, life support, And of course, the silent destroyer. They entered the bridge. It now looked nothing like the rusted, broken room from 6 months ago. New screens covered the walls. The control stations were sleek and modern. Only the captain's chair remained from the original ship, though it had been rebuilt and improved. And the crew knows not to discuss any of these improvements with outsiders. Admiral Blake asked. Yes, Admiral. Everyone understands the importance of secrecy. Admiral Blake nodded, satisfied. She looked out the main viewport at the other 11 ships of Earth's fleet. From the outside, they all still looked like the rusted warships the Freylins had sold them. No one would suspect the advanced technology now hidden inside. Keep the exterior appearances exactly as they are, Blake ordered. Let them continue to underestimate us. Thomas nodded. Yes, Admiral. When will the fleet be ready for its first real test? Thomas turned to First Officer Anna Wilson, who had just entered the bridge. 2 more weeks, Admiral, Anna reported. The last ship should complete its upgrades by then. Good, Admiral Blake said, because we're going to need them sooner than expected. She activated the main screen. It showed a news report about the Meridian Trading Company, a Vraylan corporation that had been operating on Earth for 2 years. The company had been extracting rare minerals from Earth's crust, paying humans far less than they were worth on the galactic market. The Vraylans have refused our latest request to renegotiate the terms of the mining agreements, Admiral Blake explained. In fact, they've threatened to block our Federation membership application if we push the issue. Thomas frowned. They can't do that, can they? We've met all the requirements. They can, and they will, Blake said. The Vraylans have a lot of influence in the Federation Council. More importantly, they've sent 3 battle cruisers to Earth orbit as a friendly reminder of their power. Thomas felt his face grow hot with anger. So they sell us junk ships, steal our resources for almost nothing. And now they're threatening us with their real warships. That's exactly what they're doing, Blake confirmed. They think we have no choice but to obey. After all, what could we possibly do with our pathetic fleet of rusted warships? She smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. That's where they're wrong, she continued. In 3 weeks, we're going to teach them, and the rest of the Federation, a lesson about underestimating humanity. She turned to face Thomas and Anna. Captain Reed, First Officer Wilson, your ship will lead the demonstration. The Resilient will be our silent destroyer. Thomas stood straighter. We won't let you down, Admiral. After Admiral Blake left, Thomas and Anna remained on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Do you think we can really stand up to the Freylins? Anna asked quietly. Even with our new technology, they have centuries of experience in space warfare. Thomas thought about the arrogant Vraylan delegates who had handed over the keys to the rusted ships with barely hidden smirks on their alien faces. They think they know everything about us, he said. They think they know everything about what's possible in space. They're wrong on both counts. He sat in the captain's chair, the only visible piece of the original ship that remained on the bridge. The Vraylans sold us these ships because they thought we were desperate and naive, he said. Now it's time to show them exactly what humans can do with a little desperation and a lot of ingenuity. Anna smiled for the first time in months. I can't wait to see their faces. Around them, the Resilient hummed with power, no longer a rusted warship, but something entirely new, something the galaxy had never seen before, and it was almost ready to reveal itself. The Meridian Trading Company's main building stood tall in the center of New Denver. Its glass walls shone in the morning sun, making it look like a tower of light. Inside, on the top floor, 4 humans sat across from 3 Vraylans. President Maria Foster kept her face calm, though inside she felt angry. The Vraylans had refused all of Earth's attempts to change the mining agreements for the past month. High Counselor Drav, she said, Earth simply asks for fair payment for our minerals. The current price is 5 times lower than what these same resources sell for in Federation markets. High Counselor Drav was tall, even for a Vraylan. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were large and completely black. He smiled, showing teeth that looked too sharp for a diplomat. "President Foster," he said, his voice smooth, "the current agreements were signed by your government just 2 years ago. The Meridian Trading Company has invested significant resources in setting up operations on your planet. Changing the terms now would be unfortunate." Maria noticed how he didn't actually say the price was fair. He only said they had already agreed to it. Earth was new to the galactic community when those agreements were signed, she pointed out. "We had no way of knowing the true value of our resources." "That is hardly our concern," said another Vraylan, Trade Minister Lox. "Perhaps humans should have conducted more research before signing." The third Vraylan remained silent, but his eyes never stopped watching Maria and her team. Maria was about to respond when her aide handed her a tablet. She looked at it, and her heart beat faster. 3 Vraylan battlecruisers had just entered Earth orbit. She looked up at High Counselor Drav. His smile had grown wider. "Is there something wrong, President Foster?" he asked, though his tone made it clear he knew exactly what had happened. "You've sent warships to Earth," she said flatly. Drav spread his long, 4-fingered hands. "Simply a routine patrol. The Federation has a duty to ensure the safety of all member worlds and potential member worlds." The threat was clear. If Earth pushed too hard on the mining agreements, the Vraylans would block their Federation membership application. They might even use their ships to force Earth to cooperate. Maria stood up. "This meeting is over for today. Earth will consider its position." As the Vraylans left, Maria's military advisor, General Dan Turner, leaned close to her. "They're not even trying to hide the threat," he muttered. "No," Maria agreed. "They don't think they need to. Call Admiral Blake immediately." Admiral Blake stood in the secure communication room beneath the Rocky Mountains. On the screen in front of her, President Foster's face showed both anger and worry. "They sent 3 battle cruisers, Eliza," the president said. "Class 4 warships with full weapons arrays. Our sensors detect they've activated their shields." "As we expected," Admiral Blake replied calmly. "The Vraylans always use force to back up their diplomacy." "Is our fleet ready?" President Foster asked. "The Resilient is fully operational. The other 11 ships will be ready within a week." "We may not have a week. High Counselor Drav has requested a video conference with Earth's full government in 3 days. I think they're planning to issue an ultimatum." Admiral Blake nodded. "Then we'll have to accelerate our plans. The Resilient alone should be enough for what we need to do." "Are you sure?" President Foster looked worried. "Even with the silent destroyer technology, it's just 1 ship against 3 of their most powerful warships." "1 is all we need for now," Admiral Blake said confidently. "Besides, Captain Reed and his crew have been training for this scenario specifically." "Very well," President Foster sighed. "But be careful, Eliza. If this goes wrong." "It won't," Admiral Blake assured her. "Operation Silent Response begins now." High Counselor Drav smiled as his image appeared on the large screen in Earth's United Government Chamber. Behind him, the other members of the Vraylan Trade Council sat in a semicircle. "President Foster, esteemed members of Earth's government," he began, "I hope you have had time to reconsider your position on the mining agreements." Maria Foster stood tall. Around her sat the representatives of Earth's nations and regions. "High Counselor, Earth has indeed reconsidered," she said. "We have decided that the current agreements must stand for now." Drav's smile grew wider. "A wise decision. The Meridian Trading Company values its relationship with Earth. However," Maria continued, "we request a gradual adjustment in pricing over the next 5 years to bring payments in line with Federation standard rates." Drav's smile disappeared. "That is not acceptable. The agreements will remain exactly as they are for the full 10-year term." Behind him, another Vraylan whispered something in his ear. Drav's expression changed. "President Foster, our sensors detect that one of your ships has left Earth orbit. Where is it going?" Maria kept her face neutral. "The Resilient is conducting routine training exercises. High Counselor, nothing that should concern you. Training. Drav repeated, clearly not believing her. With a single ship. He laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. President Foster, your fleet is barely fit for scrap. Your people can hardly operate the basic systems of those outdated vessels. What kind of training could you possibly be conducting? As I said, nothing that should concern you, Maria replied coolly. Drav leaned forward. Call your ship back immediately, or my battlecruisers will intercept it. I would hate for there to be an accident. Maria looked at him without blinking. The Resilient will continue its planned exercises, High Counselor. If your ships interfere, we will consider it an act of aggression against Earth. Drav stared at her in disbelief, then burst out laughing. The other Vreylans joined in. You threaten us? With what? Your rusted warships. He shook his head. Your single ship would not last 10 seconds against one of our cruisers, let alone 3. Maria simply smiled. We'll see, won't we? Drav's laughter stopped. His black eyes narrowed. Very well. If humans need a demonstration of Vreylan power to understand their place, then so be it. The screen went dark. Maria turned to her military advisor. Is everything in position? General Turner nodded. Captain Reed is ready. The Resilient is on course to intercept the Vreylan ships. And our backup plan. In place, Madam President. Maria took a deep breath. Then may God help us all. Far above Earth, the Resilient moved through space, its rusted hull gleaming dully in the sunlight. From the outside, it looked like exactly what it was supposed to be, an outdated, barely functional warship crewed by inexperienced humans. Inside, Captain Thomas Reed sat in his command chair, watching as 3 sleek, powerful Vreylan battlecruisers changed course to intercept his ship. Status of silent destroyer, he asked calmly. Ready, Captain. Anna Wilson replied from her station. All systems green. Thomas nodded. Let's show the Vreylans what humans can do. The bridge of the Vreylan battlecruiser Dominant Force was quiet as Commander Pelk watched the approaching human ship. The vessel looked exactly as he expected, rusted, patched together, and primitive. Its engines left a visible trail in space, something no modern ship would do. They send one ship, Commander Pelk said with a laugh. And not even their best one. He shook his head, his blue skin reflecting the light of his command console. Sir, the human vessel is hailing us, reported his communications officer. Put them on screen, Pelk ordered. Let's hear what they have to say before we teach them a lesson. The main screen lit up to show Captain Thomas Reed sitting calmly in his command chair. Behind him, the bridge of the Resilient looked exactly as it had when the Vreylans sold it to Earth, outdated, with half the systems appearing broken. Vreylan vessels, this is Captain Thomas Reed of the Earth ship Resilient, Thomas said formally. You are approaching too close to Earth security space. Please adjust your course. Commander Pelk couldn't help but laugh again. Captain Reed, you seem confused. Your single, outdated vessel is attempting to challenge 3 Vreylan battlecruisers. Perhaps your sensors are malfunctioning. I suggest you return to Earth immediately. Thomas's expression didn't change. I repeat, you are entering restricted space. Change course now, or we will be forced to take action. Take action? Pelk repeated in disbelief. With what weapons? Those rust-covered missile tubes that probably don't even work anymore. He leaned forward. Captain Reed, my smallest weapon could destroy your entire ship with one shot. Do you understand that? We understand completely, Thomas replied. This is your final warning. Pelk turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines. Low power. I don't want to destroy them. Just disable their ship so we can tow it back to Earth. Let's show these humans the difference between real warships and the junk we sold them. Targeting complete, reported the weapons officer. Ready to fire. Fire, Pelk ordered. A bright beam of energy shot from the Dominant Force toward the Resilient. It was a perfect shot, aimed directly at the human ship's main engine. But something impossible happened. The beam passed right through the Resilient as if the ship wasn't there. The energy continued into empty space before dissipating. Pelk blinked in confusion. What happened? Did you miss? No, Commander, the weapons officer said, checking his console. Direct hit confirmed, but no damage registered. Impossible. Fire again, full power this time. The weapon fired again. The same thing happened. The beam passed through the human ship without causing any damage. Scan that vessel again. Pelk ordered, his voice rising. What kind of trick is this? Sir, said the science officer, our scans show. I don't understand. The ship is there, but also not there. It's as if it's partially in another dimension. On the screen, Captain Reed smiled for the first time. Commander Pelk, allow me to introduce you to the silent destroyer. On the bridge of the Resilient, Thomas felt a moment of satisfaction as he watched the confusion on the Vreeland commander's face. The silent destroyer was working perfectly. Weapons status, he asked. Quantum phase cannons charged and ready. Anna reported from her station. We can fire at any time. Thomas nodded. Target their weapons systems only. Minimum power needed to disable them without causing serious damage. Targeted, Anna confirmed. Ready to fire. Thomas took a deep breath. This would be the first real test of Earth's new weapons in combat. Fire. The Resilient shuddered slightly as the quantum phase cannons fired. Unlike the Vreeland's energy beams, these weapons were almost invisible, just a slight ripple in space that traveled from the Resilient to the dominant force. The effect was dramatic. The Vreeland ship's weapon arrays sparked and went dark. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Direct hit, Anna reported. Their weapons are offline. Target the second ship, Thomas ordered. Same protocol. One by one, the Resilient disabled all 3 Vreeland battlecruisers. Their weapons, shields, and engines were now non-functional. The mighty warships floated helplessly in space. Thomas opened the communication channel again. Commander Pelk, your ships have been disabled. Your weapons, shields, and engines are offline. You are now at our mercy. Pelk's face showed a mixture of shock, fear, and anger. What have you done? What is this technology? This is impossible. Not impossible, Thomas replied calmly. Just something you never discovered. While you were busy laughing at our rusted warships, we were busy improving them. You can't do this, Pelk shouted. This is an act of war against the Vreeland Empire. No, Thomas shook his head. This is a response to your aggression. You sent battle cruisers to threaten Earth. You refused fair payment for our resources. You thought your superior technology made you untouchable. He paused before continuing. We're not going to destroy your ships, Commander. That's not our way. Instead, we'll tow you back to Earth, where you'll wait while your government sends representatives to discuss new fair agreements with us. The Vreeland Empire will never negotiate with. Thomas cut the communication. Sir, Anna said, we're being hailed from Earth. It's Admiral Blake. Put her through, Thomas replied. Admiral Blake's face appeared on the screen. She was smiling widely. Excellent work, Captain Reed, she said. The President has already received a message from the Federation Council. They seem very interested in discussing Earth's concerning new technology and our membership status. The silent destroyer worked perfectly, Admiral, Thomas reported. Their weapons couldn't touch us, and our phase cannons disabled their ships without causing major damage. Perfect, Blake nodded. Tow those ships back to Earth. And Captain, make sure to go slowly. I want them to have plenty of time to think about what just happened. News of the encounter spread quickly throughout the Federation. Most species had never heard of humans before. Now, they couldn't stop talking about them. The Vreeland High Council called an emergency meeting. High Councilor Drav had been removed from his position after the embarrassing defeat of 3 battlecruisers by a single human ship, a ship that the Vreelands themselves had sold as outdated junk. On dozens of worlds, Scientists and engineers were trying to understand this new quantum phase technology that let a ship exist in two dimensions at once. How had humans, new to space travel, discovered something that the oldest races in the galaxy had missed? In the Federation Council chambers, the Premier called for calm. "We must not panic," he told the gathered representatives. "Yes, humans have demonstrated an unexpected technology, but they used it only to disable, not destroy. They showed restraint." A representative from the Zolta Confederation stood up. "Restraint? They humiliated the Vrelans. 3 battle cruisers defeated by 1 ship. A ship that the Vrelans sold them as junk," pointed out another representative, causing murmurs throughout the chamber. "Perhaps the humans are simply more resourceful than we expected." The Premier raised his hands for silence. "The Federation has invited humanity to send representatives to discuss their membership application. It will be decided within the week." What no one said aloud was that Earth's membership was now certain to be approved. No one wanted humans as enemies, not after what they had shown they could do with 1 ship. And somewhere in the back of everyone's mind was a troubling question. If this is what humans can do with our discarded technology, what else might they be capable of? 1 month after the confrontation with the Vrelan ships, Earth's orbital station gleamed in the sunlight. It was a busy day. Ships from a dozen different Federation species moved around the station, bringing delegates for the historic meeting. Admiral Eliza Blake stood at the large viewing window, watching as a particularly impressive vessel approached. Unlike the other ships, this one shimmered with colors that seemed to change as it moved. It was the personal transport of Premier Toll, the leader of the entire Galactic Federation. "I never thought I'd see the day," President Maria Foster said as she joined Blake at the window. "The Federation Premier, coming to Earth. Amazing what disabling 3 battle cruisers can do for your social calendar," Blake replied with a small smile. The President laughed softly. "And the trade agreements? The Vrelan signed everything this morning. Fair market value for all our minerals, technology sharing, everything we asked for." "They didn't have much choice," Blake said. "Not after what happened." They watched as the Premier's ship docked smoothly with the station. "Are you ready for this?" the President asked. Blake nodded. "Captain Reed and the Resilient are standing by." The Premier wanted to see our ships up close. "Still looking as rusty as ever on the outside?" Foster asked with a smile. "Of course," Blake replied. "Some appearances are worth keeping." The meeting room on the orbital station was large and circular. The walls were made of clear material that showed the stars outside. Earth representatives sat on one side of the table. Federation delegates sat on the other. At the head of the table was Premier Toll. The Premier was unlike any being the humans had seen before. His body was crystalline, catching light and breaking it into beautiful patterns that danced across the room. When he moved, it looked like flowing water made of glass. "Earth has surprised us," Premier Toll said, his voice somehow both deep and musical. "In my 500 years, I have rarely seen such a dramatic entrance to the galactic community." President Foster nodded respectfully. "We did not intend to cause disruption," Premier Toll. "We only wish to protect our sovereignty and ensure fair treatment. By creating technology the Federation's oldest races never discovered," the Premier said. His tone wasn't angry, just curious. "The Vrelans assured us you were centuries away from developing dimensional technology. We took a different path," Admiral Blake explained. "During our attempts to achieve faster-than-light travel, we explored many possibilities the Federation races had already abandoned." "So it seems," the Premier said. "I must ask, how many other different paths have you explored that we should be aware of?" President Foster smiled diplomatically. "That would depend on the nature of our relationship moving forward, Premier." The crystalline being made a sound like wind chimes, a laugh, the humans realized. "Well said, President Foster." The Premier's body shifted, creating new patterns of light. "The Federation Council has voted unanimously to accept Earth's membership application, effective immediately." Murmurs of approval came from the human side of the table. Additionally, the Premier continued, "We have required the Vraylan Empire to offer fair compensation for their misleading business practices regarding the warships they sold you." "That won't be necessary," Foster said, surprising many in the room. "Those ships served our needs perfectly well." The Premier's crystalline form rippled, the equivalent of raised eyebrows. "Indeed, even though they were outdated and in poor condition. Sometimes," Admiral Blake said quietly, "what appears to be a disadvantage can become an advantage if viewed correctly." The Premier turned to her. "The Silent Destroyer. A most interesting name for your technology. Not just a weapon, but a philosophy." Blake nodded. "An old human strategy. Appear weak when you are strong." "Fascinating," the Premier said. "I believe the Federation has much to learn from humanity." After the formal meetings ended, Premier Tall requested a private tour of the Resilient. Only Captain Reed, Admiral Blake, and the Premier were allowed on board. As they walked through the corridors of the ship, the Premier observed everything carefully. "From the outside, it still appears as the Vraylan sold it to you," he noted. "Yet inside, complete transformation," Captain Reed confirmed. "We kept the exterior appearance intentionally." They reached the engine room, where the Silent Destroyer device hummed quietly. The Premier studied it for a long time. "Such a small thing," he said finally, "to change the balance of power so dramatically." He turned to Admiral Blake. "You could have used this technology to destroy those Vraylan ships completely. Why didn't you?" "That's not who we are," Blake replied simply. "We wanted to defend ourselves, not start a war." The Premier's crystalline body shifted again, catching the light in new ways. "In my centuries of life," he said, "I have seen many species join the Federation. Some came as conquerors, others as refugees. Some brought great technology, others great wisdom. But few have made such an impression in so short a time." He moved closer to the Silent Destroyer device. "May I ask, are there other innovations your people have developed that might surprise us?" Blake smiled. "As President Foster said, that depends on our relationship moving forward." The Premier made the wind chime sound again. "I believe this will be the beginning of a most interesting friendship." 1 week later, Thomas Reed stood on the bridge of the Resilient, watching as his ship led a patrol of Federation vessels through Earth's solar system. It was a joint exercise, the first of many planned between Earth and other Federation members. "How does it feel?" Anna Wilson asked as she joined him by the viewport. "What?" he asked. "Going from being laughed at to being respected. All those ships out there. Some of them are from the oldest species in the galaxy, and they're following our lead." Thomas watched as the Federation ships moved in perfect formation behind the Resilient. Its hull was still rusted and patched, a reminder of how the Vraylans had tried to trick humanity. "It feels right," he said finally. "But this is just the beginning." "What do you mean?" Anna asked. Thomas smiled. "Admiral Blake told me this morning. The other 11 ships in our fleet are being assigned to different Federation patrol groups to share expertise, they say. But really, to see what else we might be capable of." Anna finished for him. "Exactly." Thomas looked out at the stars. "They're studying us now, trying to understand what other secrets we might have." "And do we have other secrets?" Anna asked curiously. Thomas thought about the secure facility under the Rocky Mountains, where Earth scientists were already working on new technologies based on what they had learned from the Federation's data archives. "I suppose time will tell," he said with a small smile. "But one thing is certain. No one will underestimate humanity again." The Resilient continued forward, leading the way, its rusted hull now a badge of honor rather than a mark of shame. The Silent Destroyer had shown the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving, and that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons, but its ability to turn disadvantage into advantage. The stars stretched out before them, endless with possibility. The end.
The Death World Council station hung in space like a massive metal flower. Its 6 arms stretched out from a central hub, each one bigger than most space cities. Inside those arms lived the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Only creatures from the deadliest worlds could call this place home. Captain Reed looked at the station through the cracked window of his ship. The Defiance shook around him as another system failed somewhere in the back. Sparks flew from a broken panel near his chair. The lights flickered on and off like a dying heartbeat. "Sir, they're not answering our calls," said Lieutenant Tom from the communication station. His young face was covered in sweat and grease. "Been trying for 20 minutes now." Reed nodded slowly. He had expected this. The council did not welcome visitors, especially not visitors who looked like they were about to die. The Defiance was not a pretty ship. Her hull was covered in metal patches where space rocks had punched holes. Wire bundles hung from the ceiling where engineers had rerouted power around broken systems. The air recycler made a grinding sound that meant it might stop working any day now. "Keep trying," Reed said, "and send them our papers. All of them." Through the station's massive windows, alien shapes moved in the corridors. Reed could see a creature made of living crystal walking past a viewing port. Somewhere else, a being covered in thick fur moved on 4 legs down a hallway. These were the council members, the survivors of worlds that tried to kill everything that lived on them. "Sir, we're getting a response," Tom called out. "Administrator Vex wants to talk." The main screen flickered to life. A face made of blue crystal looked back at them. Administrator Vex had no real mouth, but her voice came through clearly. When she spoke, light pulsed through her crystal body like a heartbeat. "Unknown vessel, you are not authorized to dock at this station," Vex said. Her voice sounded like breaking glass. "This facility is restricted to certified Death World species only." Reed stood up slowly. His uniform was old and patched, but clean. "Administrator Vex, I am Captain Reed of the Human Defense Force. We have an appointment." "Humans?" Vex's crystal body flashed brighter. "I have no record of any species called humans. Where is your homeworld?" "Earth," Reed replied. "Sol system, Orion Arm." There was a long pause. Reed could see other council members gathering behind Vex. A massive creature covered in stone plates leaned down to whisper something to the administrator. Another being, this one covered in thick white fur, pointed at the human ship with what might have been a claw. "I see no Earth on our Death World registry," Vex said finally. "Your vessel appears to be damaged. Are you in distress? Do you require rescue?" Some of Reed's crew laughed quietly. Rescue? As if anyone in the galaxy could rescue humans from the things they chose to face. "No rescue needed," Reed said. "We have proper documentation. Lieutenant Tom, send them file package 7. Tom's fingers danced over his controls. "Sent, sir." Reed watched Vex's crystal face as she received the files. Her body went dark for a moment, then blazed with bright light. Behind her, the other council members pressed closer to their own screens. "These documents," Vex started, then stopped. "These can't be real." 3 different galactic survey teams certified Earth as a Class 12 Death World, Reed said calmly. The Zephyrian Science Council rated it unsurvivable by standard life. The Galactic Mapping Authority classified it as extreme biological hazard zone. And your own people, the Crystal Confederation, marked it as not recommended for any form of life. The station's docking bay controllers were clearly confused. Reed could hear them talking to each other over open channels. Words like impossible and fraud came through clearly. "Your ship," said the massive stone creature behind Vex. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "It looks ready to fall apart." "It is," Reed agreed. "We've been traveling for 6 months to get here. Space is not kind to ships that push their limits." 6 months? The furry creature stepped forward. "From where?" "No Death World species lives 6 months' travel from Council space." Reed smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Earth is 47 light years from here. We came as fast as we could." "Impossible," Vex said. "No ship can maintain life support for that long without major shipyard support. The fuel requirements alone." "We did not say it was easy," Reed replied. We said we did it. More council. Members were gathering now. Reed could see them through the station's windows. Some floated in suits filled with liquid. Others wore heavy mechanical bodies that helped them move in the station's gravity. All of them stared at the broken human ship with confusion. Administrator Vex, Reed said, we have legal right to dock at this station. Our papers are in order. Our world meets your requirements. We request permission to attend the council session as outlined in Galactic Treaty 445B. Vex's body flickered rapidly. Reed knew she was talking to her legal advisors through private channels. The documents were real. Earth was officially classified as a death world. The humans had followed every rule correctly. Docking Bay 7, Vex said finally. You have 6 hours to present your case to the council. Security teams will escort you at all times. Understood, Reed said. Thank you, Administrator. The screen went dark. Around Reed, his crew began preparing for docking. They moved with quiet efficiency, checking equipment and organizing their few belongings. No one seemed excited about meeting the galaxy's most dangerous species. They had more important things to worry about. Sir, Tom said quietly. Do you think they'll believe us about Earth, I mean? Reed looked out at the station again. Somewhere in there, creatures from frozen worlds and burning worlds and poisonous worlds were wondering what kind of place could create beings that looked so soft and fragile. They'll believe us, Reed said, once they see what we brought with us. Lieutenant Jane walked over from her station. She carried a small data pad in her hands. The screen showed a long list of names, each one marked with a date and location. The manifest is ready, sir, she said softly. All names confirmed. Reed took the pad and looked at the list. 43 names. 43 people who would never see Earth again. 43 humans who had died just so the rest could reach this meeting. Good work, Jane, Reed said. We'll need this when we talk to the council. The Defiant shuddered as the docking clamps engaged. Through the hull, Reed could hear the station's atmosphere pumps working to equalize pressure. Soon the council would meet humanity for the first time. Reed hoped the galaxy was ready for what that meant. The airlock doors opened with a loud hiss. Captain Reed stepped into Deathworld Council Station carrying his datapad like a weapon. Behind him came his crew, 12 humans who looked tired and worn from their long journey. The docking bay was huge. Ships from a dozen deadly worlds sat in their berths like sleeping monsters. Reed saw a vessel made entirely of ice that somehow did not melt. Another ship glowed red-hot, its metal hull radiating heat that made the air shimmer. Waiting for them were the council's security team. The lead guard was 8 feet tall and covered in blue scales. His partner floated in a tank of green liquid, watching the humans through thick glass. Neither looked friendly. Welcome to Council Station, the scaled guard said. His voice was deep and rough. I am Guard Commander Razor. You will follow me and touch nothing. Reed nodded. Understood, Commander. As they walked through the station's corridors, other beings stopped to stare. A creature made of living metal peered at them from a doorway. Something that looked like a giant spider watched from the ceiling. Word was spreading fast. The soft-looking aliens from the impossible ship had actually made it inside. The council chamber was a massive round room with seats arranged in circles. Each seat was designed for a different type of being. Some were filled with water, others with poison gas. A few glowed with radioactive light. Administrator Vex waited in the center, her crystal body reflecting the room's strange lights. Around her sat the council members Reed had seen through the station windows. Captain Reed, Vex announced, you claim to represent a Deathworld species. The council has reviewed your papers. While they appear genuine, we find your claims difficult to believe. A massive creature covered in stone plates leaned forward. I am Council Member Rock from the world Pharaoh. My planet has gravity 10 times standard. The pressure would crush most beings instantly. Yet you look fragile enough to break in a strong wind. I am Council Member Ice from the frozen world Nyx, said a being wrapped in thick white fur. My homeworld is so cold that most atmosphere freezes solid. Your species appears to have no protection against extreme temperatures. A third council member spoke from inside a suit filled with bubbling liquid. I am Council Member Heat from the lava world Pyros. My planet's surface temperature melts most metals. You wear simple cloth uniforms. How do you survive anything dangerous? Reed looked around the room at faces that had never known mercy from their worlds. These beings understood death and struggle in the fight to survive against impossible odds. They would understand what he was about to show them. Council members, Reed said, holding up his data pad. I carry with me the record of our journey to reach you. Perhaps this will answer your questions about human survival. He touched the pad's screen. A holographic display appeared above the room's center, showing a list of names. Each name had a date next to it and a few words explaining what happened. Engineer Bell, Reed read from the list. Died on day 43 when our reactor nearly exploded. He stayed in the engine room to fix the containment field manually. The radiation killed him in 6 hours. The council members looked at each other. Vex's crystal body flickered with confused light. Pilot Hayes, Reed continued. Died on day 67 when we had to navigate through the Poison Nebula. Someone had to fly the ship manually because our computers couldn't handle the interference. The toxic gas got through his suit's filters. Navigator Brooks. Died on day 91 when space pirates attacked us near the Broken Worlds. She rammed our shuttle into their main ship so the Defiance could escape. Took 12 pirates with her. Reed kept reading. Dr. Price, who died treating a plague they caught at a supply station. Communications Officer Black, who was sucked into space when a meteor punched through the hull. Cook Martinez, who died when the food recycler exploded and filled the kitchen with poisonous gas. This is horrible, whispered Ice. Why didn't you turn back? Why didn't you find a safer route? Reed looked up from his list. There is no safer route, Council Member Ice. Space wants to kill everything in it. Pirates want to rob and murder travelers. Plagues spread between worlds faster than news. Equipment breaks down and kills the people trying to fix it. But you could have avoided some of these dangers, Rock said. Taken more time. Brought better equipment. We brought the best equipment Earth could build, Reed replied. It wasn't enough, it's never enough, that's why we always bring backup crews. Backup crews? Vex asked. Lieutenant Tom stepped forward. Sir, should I tell them about the volunteers? Reed nodded. Tom activated his own datapad. Another holographic list appeared, this one much longer. When we left Earth, Tom explained, we knew people would die on this journey, so we asked for volunteers to replace anyone we lost. 30 people volunteered for 12 backup positions. 30? Heat asked from inside his liquid suit. You had more volunteers than you could use? Much more, Tom said. We had to turn away over 200 people. Everyone wanted to be part of the crew that made first contact with the Death World Council. The council chamber fell silent. These beings had spent their lives fighting to survive on worlds that tried to kill them every day. But they had never met a species that volunteered to die for a meeting. Let me understand this correctly, Vex said slowly. You knew this journey would kill some of your crew. You told people they would probably die. And they volunteered anyway? Yes, Reed said. Simply, why? Ice asked. What could be so important that people would volunteer for certain death? Reed smiled, and for the first time since entering the station, it was a real smile. Council Member Ice, that's exactly the wrong question. What do you mean? You asked. Why people would volunteer to die, Reed explained. But that's not what happened. We asked for volunteers who would live long enough to complete the mission. Some of them didn't make it. That's what happens when humans decide something is important. Rock's stone face showed something that might have been surprise. You don't see their deaths as failure? We see their deaths as the price of success, Reed replied. Every person on that list died doing their job. Because of their sacrifice, we made it here. Because we made it here. Humanity now has a voice in the council. Reed touched his datapad again. The list of the dead disappeared, replaced by images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. You want to know if humans can survive a death world? Reed said to the council. Look at what we brought with us. Look at what we were willing to pay to get here. Then ask yourself, what kind of world creates people who think this is normal? Administrator Vex's crystal body pulsed with rapid, confused light. Around the chamber, council members whispered to each other in languages Reed couldn't understand. Finally, Heat spoke from his liquid suit. Captain Reed, we need to see proof of your world's dangers. Claims about your journey are not enough. Show us why Earth deserves to be called a death world. Reed nodded and handed his datapad to Lieutenant Jane. Begin the presentation, he said. Show them what home looks like. Jane's fingers moved across the pad's controls. The holographic display changed, showing new images of Earth. But these were not the beautiful pictures of blue oceans and green forests. These were pictures of Earth trying to kill everything that lived on it. The real presentation was about to begin. Lieutenant Jane touched her datapad and the holographic display came to life above the council chamber. The first image showed Earth from space, a blue and green marble floating in the darkness. This is Earth, Jane announced to the assembled council members. Population, 8 billion humans. Average lifespan, 78 years. Dominant species for the last 50,000 years. Council member Rock leaned forward in his stone chair. It looks pleasant. Where are the dangers you speak of? Jane smiled the same tired smile Captain Reed had worn earlier. Let me show you our weather, Council member Rock. The display changed. Now it showed a massive spiral of white clouds spinning over an ocean. The storm was bigger than most moons, with winds that could be seen from space. This is what we call a hurricane, Jane explained. Wind speeds reach 300 kilometers per hour. The storm surge can flood areas 50 kilometers inland. This particular hurricane killed 8,000 people and destroyed 4 major cities. Administrator Vex's crystal body flickered. One storm killed 8,000 of your people? One small storm, Jane corrected. We get about 80 of these every year. Some are much worse. The display changed again. This time it showed a massive column of wind, dark and twisted, tearing across a flat landscape. Houses and vehicles spun through the air like toys. Tornado, Jane said simply. Wind speeds up to 500 kilometers per hour. They appear with almost no warning and can change direction instantly. We get about 1,000 of these every year. Council member Ice shifted in her fur-covered chair. Surely your people stay inside during these storms. We try, Jane replied. But they happen too often. People have to work, travel, live their lives. So we built warning systems and shelters and learned to rebuild quickly. The next image made several council members gasp. It showed the ground itself splitting open, buildings collapsing, roads cracking apart like broken glass. Earthquake, Jane announced. The planet's surface is made of giant plates that move and crash into each other. When they shift, the ground shakes hard enough to destroy entire cities. This one killed 50,000 people in 6 minutes. How often do these occur? Asked Heat from inside his liquid suit. Every day, Jane said casually. Somewhere on Earth, the ground is shaking. Most are small, but every few years we get a big one. The display showed more images now, cycling through Earth's natural disasters. Volcanoes erupting with explosive force, sending ash clouds that blocked out the sun for months. Floods that covered areas the size of small continents. Droughts that turned fertile land into dust bowls. This is just the geology and weather, Jane continued. Should I show you the biology? Before anyone could answer, the display changed to show a tiny organism magnified thousands of times. It looked like a twisted piece of metal with spikes. This is a virus, Jane said. Smaller than you can see without special equipment. This particular one killed 50 million humans in just 2 years. We call it the Spanish flu. 50 million? Vex whispered. From something so small? That's not even our worst plague, Jane replied. The Black Death killed 1/3 of all humans in Europe. Smallpox wiped out entire civilizations when it spread to new continents. More images flashed across the display. Bacteria that could kill in hours. Parasites that lived inside human bodies for years before killing their hosts. Fungal infections that spread through the air and rotted people from the inside. These diseases jump between species, Jane explained. A virus that lives harmlessly. In one animal can kill millions of humans. New plagues appear every year. We're always fighting something trying to kill us from the inside. Council member Rock's stone face showed deep confusion. How do you survive such biological warfare? We fight back, Jane said. We developed medicine, vaccines, treatments. When something new tries to kill us, we study it until we can kill it first. The display changed again, showing predators this time. A massive shark with rows of razor teeth. A bear that stood 3 meters tall. A big cat with muscles like steel cables. Our predators, Jane announced. This shark can bite through steel. This bear can run 50 kilometers per hour and climb trees. This cat can leap 10 meters and kill prey twice its size. But surely you avoid these creatures, Ice asked. We can't, Jane replied. They live everywhere we do. In our oceans, forests, even our cities sometimes. We had to learn to be better hunters than anything hunting us. More images flashed by. Snakes with venom that could kill in minutes. Spiders whose bite rotted flesh away from bones. Insects that carried deadly diseases. Plants that were poisonous to touch. Everything on Earth is trying to survive, Jane continued. Plants develop toxins to avoid being eaten. Animals evolve better weapons and defenses. Diseases mutate to spread faster. It's a war that never ends. The final set of images showed humans themselves. People climbing impossible mountains in freezing cold. Others diving into deep oceans without breathing equipment. Groups crossing deserts where the sun could cook flesh. This is how we live, Jane said. We don't just survive Earth's dangers, we seek them out. We climb the highest mountains because they're dangerous. We explore the deepest caves because they might kill us. We sail across violent oceans in small boats just to see what's on the other side. Council member Heat bubbled in his liquid suit. That sounds like madness, not survival. Captain Reed stood up. Council member Heat, that's exactly right. By your standards, we are insane. We take risks that would make any reasonable species turn back and find somewhere safer to live. Then why do you do it? Vex asked. Because there is nowhere safer, Reed replied. Every part of Earth is dangerous. The safe places don't exist. So we learn to be more dangerous than our world. Jane touched her datapad one more time. The UI display showed a final image. A human child playing in a garden while a storm raged overhead. Earthquake warnings flashed on nearby screens, and dangerous animals prowled just beyond a thin fence. This is normal for us, Jane said quietly. A human child grows up knowing that anything might kill them at any moment. Storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators, accidents. Death is always close. How do your children survive such terror? Ice asked. They don't see it as terror, Reed answered. They see it as life. When you grow up expecting everything to be dangerous, you learn to be ready for anything. Administrator Vex's crystal body pulsed with slow, thoughtful light. Around the Igaupi chamber, council members whispered to each other in their alien languages. These beings had conquered their own deadly worlds, but they had never seen anything like Earth. Captain Reed, Vex said finally, your world is indeed dangerous. But danger alone does not make a species worthy of council membership. What makes humans different from the billions of other species that die on dangerous worlds? Reed smiled his tired smile. Administrator Vex, that's an excellent question, but it's not one I can answer with pictures and stories. What do you mean? The difference isn't what Earth does to us, Reed explained. The difference is what we do because of Earth. And that, Administrator, requires a demonstration. The holographic display went dark. In the silence that followed, Reed could hear the station's life support systems humming. The distant sound of alien voices in the corridors. The steady pulse of Vex's crystal body. The Council is dealing with a crisis. Reed continued. Something that threatens every world in known space. Your greatest military minds have failed to find a solution. How do you know about the swarm? Rock demanded. Because we've been watching, Reed replied. And we think we can help. The council chamber fell completely silent. Administrator Vex's crystal body stopped pulsing. Council member Rock's stone face showed no expression. Even the bubbling sound from Heat's liquid suit seemed to quiet down. "How do you know about the swarm?" Rock asked again, his voice like grinding stone. Captain Reed remained calm. "Our long-range sensors picked up the destruction signatures 6 months ago. 17 star systems consumed. Billions of lives lost. An artificial intelligence that turns everything it touches into more copies of itself. That information is classified," Vex said, her crystal body flashing with angry red light. "No outside species should know about the swarm threat." "Administrator," Reed replied. "When something starts eating star systems, the light from those systems stops reaching other worlds. We may be new to your council, but we're not blind." Lieutenant Jane stepped forward with her datapad. "We also intercepted some of your military communications. Your fleets have engaged the swarm 12 times. They've lost every battle." Council. Member Ice leaned forward in her fur-covered chair. "You were spying on us?" "We were trying to understand what we were walking into," Reed said. "Earth doesn't survive by ignoring threats. When we see something dangerous, we study it until we know how to fight it." Heat bubbled angrily in his liquid suit. "The swarm has defeated the combined fleets of 6 Death World species. Our best strategists have tried every approach. What could humans possibly offer that we haven't already attempted?" Reed smiled his tired smile. "Council Member Heat, that's the perfect question. Lieutenant Tom, show them our battle records." Tom activated his datapad. The holographic display above the chamber showed a 3-dimensional map of human space. Red dots marked battle sites. Blue lines showed fleet movements. Yellow symbols indicated victory and defeat markers. "These are humanity's major conflicts over the last 500 years, Tom explained. "Wars against alien invaders, robot uprisings, plague outbreaks, natural disasters." The display zoomed in on one particular battle. It showed human ships attacking what looked like a massive mechanical fortress in space. "The Iron Fleet War," Tom continued. "Robot ships controlled by an AI that wanted to eliminate all biological life. Sound familiar?" Several council members shifted in their seats. The situation did sound very familiar. Our enemy had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior coordination, Tom said. Every logical strategy failed. Conventional tactics were useless. The AI predicted our moves faster than we could make them. "How did you win?" Rock asked. "We didn't use conventional tactics," Reed replied. "We used human tactics." The display showed the battle's final phase. Human ships were attacking the robot fortress, but their approach made no sense. Some ships were flying straight at enemy weapons. Others were retreating while firing. A few were spinning out of control while somehow still hitting their targets. "I don't understand what I'm seeing," Vex said. "Your ships appear to be malfunctioning." "Not malfunctioning," Reed corrected. "Adapting. The AI couldn't predict our moves because we weren't following any logical pattern." Jane touched her data pad. The display changed to show a detailed breakdown of the human attack strategy. "Phase 1, she announced. "Half our ships deliberately damaged their own navigation systems. This made their flight patterns completely random. The AI couldn't calculate intercept courses for targets that didn't know where they were going." "That's madness," Heat bubbled. "You made your own ships helpless." "Phase 2, Jane continued, ignoring the comment. "Our damaged ships rammed enemy vessels while their crews evacuated in escape pods. The AI wasted time trying to capture the disabled ships instead of shooting the pods." Phase 3. The escape pods weren't really escape pods. They were bombs with people inside. When the AI tried to analyze them, they exploded. Ice's fur stood up in shock. "Your people rode bombs into enemy ships?" "Volunteers only," Reed said simply. "We asked for 50 volunteers. 300 people applied. The display showed more battles. Each one featured the same pattern: humans doing things that should have failed but somehow worked. The plague ships incident," Tom explained, showing another battle. "When biological weapons were turned against our colonies, we loaded infected volunteers into ships and rammed them into enemy medical facilities." The Zero-G guerrilla campaign. When our orbital cities were captured, we sent people out in simple spacesuits to fight trained soldiers in powered armor. They won by using the environment as a weapon. The Broken Moon Gambit. When our enemy took shelter behind a destroyed planet, we moved the entire moon out of orbit and dropped it on their position. Council member Rock's stone face showed something that might have been horror. You moved a moon? How many of your people died in that operation? All of them, Reed said. Everyone who worked on moving the moon knew it was a suicide mission. The radiation and gravitational forces were lethal, but it worked. This is not strategy, Vex said, her crystal body flickering rapidly. This is chaos. How do you coordinate such madness? We don't coordinate it, Reed replied. That's the point. When you're fighting an enemy that can predict logical behavior, you have to be illogical. The display changed to show current intelligence about the swarm, massive mechanical ships that converted matter into more copies of themselves. AI nodes that adapted to every attack pattern they encountered. The swarm learns from each battle, Reed explained. It analyzes your tactics and develops counters. Every time you attack, it gets stronger and smarter. Exactly, Rock said. That's why we can't defeat it. How do you fight an enemy that becomes immune to everything you try? You fight it with things that shouldn't work, Reed answered. The swarm is designed to adapt to logical threats. But how do you adapt to people who break their own equipment on purpose? How do you predict opponents who treat certain death as a tactical advantage? Jane activated a new display showing the human battle plan for fighting the swarm. The strategy looked like complete chaos. Ships attacking from impossible angles, weapons being used in ways they weren't designed for, tactics that violated every principle of space combat. This is our proposal, Reed said. We attack the swarm with every method at once. Fire and ice simultaneously, gravity weapons and EMP devices together, biological agents and radiation bombardment at the same time. Those approaches interfere with each other, Heat protested. You'll do more damage to yourselves than to the enemy. Exactly, Reed smiled. We've been doing more damage to ourselves than our enemies for thousands of years. It's how we win. Vex's crystal body went completely dark for a long moment. When the light returned, it pulsed slowly and thoughtfully. Captain Reed, she said finally, you're asking us to trust our survival to tactics that make no logical sense. Administrator Vex, Reed replied. I'm asking you to trust our survival to the one species that has been surviving impossible odds for their entire existence. The council chamber filled with whispered conversations in a dozen alien languages. These beings had conquered their own deadly worlds through strength, adaptation, and careful planning. Now they were being asked to trust creatures who seemed to win through organized suicide. We need time to consider this proposal, Rock said finally. Reed nodded. How much time do we have before the swarm reaches council space? The silence that followed was answer enough. Then we'd better start preparing, Reed said. Because ready or not, it's time to show the galaxy what humans do when everything looks hopeless. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of council space. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching through the cracked view screen as his ships took position for battle. The fleet looked like a collection of space junk. 47 vessels of different sizes and designs, all showing signs of damage and hasty repairs. Some had hull patches that didn't quite match the original metal. Others had weapon systems that clearly came from different ships entirely. Sir, the council fleet is requesting communication, Lieutenant Tom reported from his station. Put them through, Reed ordered. Administrator Vex's crystal face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Reed could see the bridge of a council warship. Clean, organized, and built by beings who understood proper engineering. Captain Reed, Vex said, our sensors show significant structural damage to most of your vessels. Are you certain they're combat ready? Reed looked around his own bridge, where sparks still flew from damaged panels, and the lights flickered with each system failure. Administrator, if we waited for our ships to be properly repaired, we'd never fight any battles. Your tactical formation makes no sense, came the voice of Council Member Rock. Half your ships are positioned behind the enemy. The other half appear to be retreating before the battle has even started. That's not a retreat, Reed replied. That's set up phase 1. Through the view screen, Reed could see the swarm approach. Hundreds of mechanical ships moved in perfect formation, their black hulls gleaming with the energy they had stolen from consumed worlds. Each ship was identical, built by machines for maximum efficiency. "Swarm vessels detected," announced Jane from her sensor station. 437 combat units. They're forming attack patterns. Reed activated the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is Captain Reed. Begin the human solution. Remember, if it looks like it should work, you're doing it wrong." The first phase of the human attack began, and immediately the Council fleet commanders started sending confused messages. "Your ships are firing on each other," Vex called out in alarm. "No," Reed corrected. "Ship groups Alpha and Beta are weakening each other's shields on purpose. When the swarm tries to scan them, the readings won't match any known tactical database." On the tactical display, the human fleet split into seemingly random groups. Some ships accelerated toward the enemy at maximum speed. Others moved so slowly they appeared to be drifting. A few spun in circles while firing their weapons in all directions. "Captain Reed, your ship group Delta is completely out of control," Rock reported. "They're tumbling end over end." "They're not out of control," Reed said calmly. "They're using gravitational slingshots around space debris to build up momentum. When they hit the swarm formation, they'll be moving too fast for the AI to calculate intercept courses." The swarm responded exactly as Reed had predicted. The AI ships tried to analyze the human formation, looking for patterns and logic. But there were no patterns. Some human vessels were charging straight ahead while others retreated. Some were spinning while others moved in perfect straight lines. "Swarm ships are hesitating," Jane reported. "Their formation is breaking apart. They can't decide which targets to prioritize." "Phase 2, Reed announced to his fleet. "Deploy the broken weapons." What happened next made several council members gasp in shock. Human ships began firing weapons that clearly didn't work properly. Energy beams that flickered on and off. Missiles that flew in spirals instead of straight lines. Particle cannons that shot in completely random directions. "Your weapons are malfunctioning." Heat bubbled from his liquid suit. "Not malfunctioning," Reed replied. "Modified. Those spiral missiles? They're programmed to look like equipment failures, but they're actually following complex attack patterns. The swarm can't predict where they'll hit because even we don't know until the last second." The flickering energy beams were striking swarm ships at random intervals. Each hit was weak, but the unpredictable timing made it impossible for the enemy to time their shield regeneration cycles. "Phase 3, Reed called out. "Evacuation protocols." Human ships throughout the fleet began launching escape pods. Hundreds of small craft separated from the main vessels and scattered in all directions. "Are you abandoning your fleet?" Vex asked in confusion. "No," Reed said. "We're spreading our crew across multiple targets. When the swarm destroys our main ships, our people will still be fighting from the pods." Sure enough, as swarm vessels destroyed human ships, they ignored the escape pods as non-threatening. But the pods weren't trying to escape. They were maneuvering into attack positions around the enemy fleet. "Escape pods don't carry weapons," Rock pointed out. "These ones do," Reed replied. "Each pod has enough explosive power to cripple a swarm vessel, and each one is piloted by a volunteer who knows they're not coming home." The battle entered its final phase. Human escape pods began ramming swarm ships, exploding on impact. But these weren't desperate suicide runs. They were carefully coordinated strikes at critical system points. "How do your pilots know where to hit the enemy ships?" Ice asked. "They don't," Reed answered. "But it doesn't matter. Swarm vessels are designed for efficiency. Hit them anywhere with enough force, and something important breaks." Meanwhile, the surviving human ships were using tactics that violated every principle of space combat. They rammed enemy vessels while their hulls were already breaching. They fired their own reactors as weapons while the crew evacuated through improvised airlocks. They used pieces of destroyed ships as projectiles. "This is madness," Vex said, but her crystal body was pulsing with what might have been admiration. "This is humanity," Reed corrected. "We've been turning disasters into victories for 50,000 years." The tide of battle shifted. The swarm's adaptive algorithms couldn't handle opponents who broke their own equipment on purpose. The AI tried to predict human behavior, but humans kept doing things that should have been impossible, One by one, swarm vessels fell to attacks that made no logical sense. Ships destroyed by weapons that weren't supposed to work. Formations broken by tactics that violated basic physics. And artificial intelligence defeated by organic chaos. When the last swarm ship exploded, the battlefield fell silent. Casualty report, Reed said quietly. Jane checked her screens. All ships destroyed, sir. All main crews lost. Escape pod survival rate, 0%. Reed nodded slowly. Around him, his bridge crew worked at stations that were failing one by one. The Defiance had taken so much damage that life support was barely functioning. Then we succeeded, Reed said. Captain Reed, Vex's voice came through the dying communication system. How are you still alive? Our sensors showed that all human vessels were destroyed. Reed looked around his bridge one more time. We're not the main fleet, Administrator. We're backup Team Alpha, the ones who clean up if the first wave doesn't make it. There are more of you? There are always more of us, Reed replied. That's what Deathworld species do, Administrator. We keep coming until the job gets done. The communication system died with a shower of sparks. Through the cracked view screen, Reed watched as Council ships moved to pick up the surviving humans. Sir, Tom said quietly. Do you think they'll accept us now? Reed smiled as the lights went out around them. Tom, I think we just showed the galaxy what it means to be human. 6 hours later, Captain Reed stood before the Deathworld Council one final time. The chamber was filled with beings who had fought their own impossible battles on worlds that tried to kill them. Captain Reed, Administrator Vex said, her crystal body glowing with warm light. The Council has reached a decision. Reed waited. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Deathworld Council. Your species has proven that you don't just survive impossible odds, you weaponize them. Around the chamber, council members from the galaxy's most dangerous worlds nodded their approval. They had found their equals at last. Welcome to the council, Vex continued. Though we suspect that before long the rest of the galaxy will be asking not what makes a world dangerous enough to produce council members, but what makes a species crazy enough to call those worlds home, Reed finished. The council voted unanimously. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as the strongest species, or the smartest, or the most advanced, but as the one species that would keep fighting long after victory became impossible. And in a galaxy full of dangers, that was exactly what everyone needed.